Hey, what's going on, guys? Thank you so much for tuning in to the Financial Griot, aka TFG. So, here in this podcast, we really enjoy just telling our stories that most people don't like to discuss. Our stories that we share is just an opportunity for growth, opportunity for understanding, but most importantly, just opportunity how we are evolving as individuals and as people. But beyond all that, we really talk about finances, specifically how to become financially literate, incorporating actionable steps, and ultimately building generational wealth. My name is Alanta Elson. I'm one of the co-hosts, and you also may be familiar with my other co-host, which is Lawrence Delva Gonzalez, aka the Neighborhood Finance Guy, and also Miss Lovely Mardellis. So today episode is super cool, and I'm so excited for you guys to hear this because we actually have our first featured guest. So this is the part where if I had like this audio thing, so that's me. Our first featured guest we have on the podcast is with the KORE'M crew. So KORE'M podcast crew is on today. With both of the co-hosts is Luther and Mock Jean. Gotta get my English Haitian Creole right. Mock Jean. But the discussions were so good, and we just touch on so many different topics. As such, we went over our scheduled time. So we will have this podcast or these episodes in two parts. Enjoy.
Welcome everybody to the Financial Griot podcast. It's your host, Lovely Mardellis, alongside with my co-host, Lawrence in Atlanta. And today's a special podcast because guess what? We really have real life guests, like real people. It's not us. It's not the three of us. We actually have the fellers from KORE'M podcast. We have Luther and Mock, and they're going to really get a chance to tell us what's going on with KORE'M, like what you guys doing. Because I hear you guys are doing some amazing things, really being able to tell the untold stories of Haitian Americans in terms of career, finance, personal development. And I just heard some great things. So I'm going to let you guys introduce yourself. Luther, you can go first. Mark, then you can go. And then I'll let Lauren segue us into today's episode.
All right. Awesome. Thank you guys for having me. Thank you, Lawrence, Atlanta, and Lovely for having us on the show. I think we are the first guests, right? We are honored. We are definitely honored to be the first on the show. I truly appreciate what you guys are doing. So my name is Luther. I am a team lead by day and a real estate investor and a podcaster, I would say, by night. I was born and raised in Haiti, in a small town called Machan de Salines. You know, I came to the U.S. when I was 15 years old. Went to FAU, went to Palm Beach State College. I'm now moved to Orlando, working for a consulting firm. So overall, that's me in a nutshell. So thanks the guy for having us.
Glam bon. Hey, I'm like, dog, he came out when he was 15. That's a solid anglais right there.
So since he spoke English, do I have to speak Creole? I don't mind.
Hey,
Mac
what? Mac Jean, you know?
Mac Jean.
Mac Jean.
Why you had his Jean out here?
I know.
My brother used to always pick on me about that. I'd be like, Jean, like this thing with Haitian Americans with it.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you guys for having us. Like Luther said, I'm just gonna follow the same script. I was actually born in Rockaway, New York, but I was raised in Haiti. I go to Haiti almost every year until probably about 2019, 2020. By day, I'm an epidemiologist. I work for an infectious disease clinic. But we all know that that's not, just working for someone else is not always the goal. We want to have our own thing. So I have, businesses on the side. And like Luther mentioned, one of the reasons why I think one of my reasons for being is literally to talk to Haitians, fellow Haitian Americans, learn from them, and being able to share our stories And that's one of the reasons why I love FromKORE'M, and that's one of the reasons why I actually wanted to come and talk to you guys as well. Having these platforms so we can push our narratives the way we want to, and not the way other people are saying it. So thank you guys for having us.
Thank you.
Cool, cool. Well, I'm just going to segue everything that we've been discussing so far. And as our first guest, I'm actually very happy because we're keeping it real Haitian right now. The Financial Griot finally brings in a Haitian group, like the Haitian Coin podcast. It's like, hey, man, we're just keeping it real Haitian. We're not even trying to make it diverse right now and inclusive of everybody. But ultimately, it's a great opportunity to have this conversation. I wanted to set up the ground rules. One, we don't do edits. And I know our audience know that. We don't do edits. We don't do cuts. We keep it unfiltered. We keep it very honest because that's the whole goal. And that's part of the philosophy and the culture of the Financial Griot. The idea of a griot is basically a storyteller, and Haitians are really great at doing the storytelling, especially at nighttime, especially around quote unquote. I don't think we had the campfires type of scenario, but we always kind of like linked up. We maybe had some kind of a balen here and there if we needed it. And we just had stories and we tell each other stuff. And the goal is very simple. Everybody could talk, everybody could say anything. If you don't have anything to say at the time, put it on mute. And unlike the American philosophy, just take your time. Like you absorb what the other person say, kind of like, and you don't have to, kind of like retort anything, and don't be afraid to talk about it. So I'm actually going to keep it real with people. I'm going to drop some stuff in there that might shock y'all. I'm not afraid to do that. So who wants to get this started? Wait. Another thing I need to bring up. I'm not too sure where we're going to drop this episode. Which one do you want? Do you want to drop this episode on Bataille de Vertières, like November 18th? Or do you want to drop it all the way in like the, January 1st, Sujumu days, whatnot? Which I want.
I mean, honestly, it's up to you guys, man. It's up to you. Whatever you decide,
I actually have no idea. I couldn't decide. Like, I want to drop it earlier or later, ladies. What's up?
You know how we go. It's really on the fly. So if we want it on the 18th, it can be there on the 18th. So
you know what? So okay, it's gonna be on the 18th. I think it's gonna be on it. What,
there's so
Atlanta?
many episodes so many episodes to choose from. So it really doesn't matter. But this is special. I would like for it to be dropped before the holidays. So that'll be nice.
Well, yeah, it's gonna be special then. So it's gonna be something a little bit, on the nose for a lot of Haitians. I see Mark, he's thinking really deep.
Yeah, because like November 18th is Bataille de Vertières, man. So I'm with it.
So okay, see, like he's thinking about it, like what does that mean? Like,
yeah, I know, right?
Like, why is it so important? Hey, can somebody actually give us a breakdown of what that is? Why is it significant for Haitians?
Bataille de Vertières?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, sure. It was the last battle that we actually fought to gain our independence. And it happened in the north, and so it's always significant for us when we think about that. It's one of those things where Napoleon had to realize he's not messing with regular folks. These folks are different. And so yeah, after that last war, and then they had to come up with different compromises and stuff like that. And Toussaint's what Toussaint wanted in terms of like the new constitution and what Haiti would look like, he actually obliged. Also because he was going through other stuff with his army. They were dying. They had a fever around that time, so he just obliged around the time. But we'll take it. A win is a win.
Yeah, a win is a win. It's a win also for the U.S. because of what happened in Haiti, because of the collapse of that, I guess that movement that they sent to try to oppress people further. They ended up losing a lot of money on that endeavor, and they had to sell and basically say, the entire left-hand side of the United States, left of the Mississippi, to include the whole Texas, Louisiana, all that stuff, all the way to the left, wouldn't really exist on the map for the U.S. if it wasn't for the defeat that they took in Haiti itself. So, hey, big ups, November 18th. Y'all learned something. So let's get it started. So, what exactly, why did you even start FromKORE'M? Like, why is the dream, this important to you?
I'll go on that one. So it's actually started, the idea started when I was in college. So like I mentioned earlier, I came here when I was 15 years old, and it was tough. It was tough for me to navigate. It was tough for me to maneuver in the country. It's a new environment. You got to create new friends, learn the English. You got to learn the language. So it was really tough. And I remember, vividly when I was in high school, my first day, I got bullied. So, and, I got lost, I couldn't, I couldn't express myself because, like I said, I didn't speak any English. So it was really tough for me that same day. When I got home, I told my dad, this is not it. This is not for me. He needs to send me back home because I thought I would come to a country where people would embrace me, and even though I met Haitians there at the school, at the high school, Lakeworth High School at that time, and I was kind of rejected because of the way I look, and because they know when you're a just come, right, quote unquote just come. So it's like you look different, you dress different, you look different, you talk different. So they didn't want any part of that, and it kind of hurt me. So thank God, my dad, my parents, they're very supportive. So they told me, hey, it's a process. You have to go through the process. It's gonna take a while for you to adjust, and so I took the advice and I went back, I started to adjust myself, and be a little bit curious about things and figuring things out, whether it's, different programs and internships and scholarships, learning about these things. And at some point in time, when I went to college, I was looking back to what I've done and accomplished and what God has helped me to do, whether it's internships, multiple internships, multiple scholarships. And I'm looking back, I'm said, wow, like the class that was with me, could have been benefited of what I'm benefiting from now, right? So I'm looking back, I said, I got to do something where I'm providing, or I'm, all the resources that I've been given, I could have shared those resources with other young Haitians. So, the idea came about, I wanted to start what do you call it, a nonprofit organization, and create a website where people would find multiple internships, multiple scholarships, did a program that could help young Haitians to be in a growth environment. That way we could help the community go better. So long story short, I started sharing the idea with people, and obviously my parents always supportive, but my friends, some of my friends, they were very negative about the idea, and they kind of shot it down. So that at that time it kind of hit me. When you have an idea and you're so excited about it and you start sharing it, and then somebody just like, who do you think you are? Like, you haven't done anything. Who do you think you are to think that you're going to create a platform where you're going to help young Haitians and help them grow and provide resources and things like that? So I kind of, forget about the idea then. And then it's not until I moved to Orlando and I started my first full-time job, and the idea that hit me back. And I was like, wow, like, I've had the opportunity to have multiple internships. I've had the opportunity to graduate college free, without any debt. All of those resources, again, a lot of young Haitians don't know about them because, they've not been exposed to them, right? I was a little bit more curious and find out about those opportunities. But what if I create a platform where I bring those opportunities to them? So that's where kind of the idea of the podcast started. At that time, I was listening to podcasts heavy. And it kind of clicked. I was like, okay, this is the idea, and why don't I put it in a podcast form? Not only now, I'll share my resources, but I can bring other young Haitians to share their resources as well. And at that time, I remember I met Mac. That's the same time I met Mac, and I was telling him about what I wanted to do and how I wanted to start a podcast, and he pumped me up. He's like, yo, I've never, we don't have that in the community. I think this will be very helpful. And we started season 1. Unfortunately, he was not part of season 1 as a host. He was there in the background and helping and pushing. But he eventually, he got on board season 2. We just had a great, amazing season 2. recently, and we had amazing guests on the show, and yeah. So overall, that's how the podcast started.
It's on me.
So
Out here, he got bullied. That hit me in the heart, man. I felt like it was a therapy moment. He's like, I was bullied.
Man, yeah,
the people didn't like me. Did the Haitians bully you, man? Like, what's up?
Yeah, man, the bully. I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe it's the look. They told me my
Atlanta. Isn't that your people in Lake Worth, dog? Like, what's good?
That's not my people.
I didn't like Belgrade, right?
Like West Palm Beach area out here, hey, West Palm Beach Haitians out here different. Man, I thought y'all were nicer up there.
I think that is a part of the transition process when you're coming to America. I think everyone has experienced that. Even if you're born here in the country, you experience some form of bullying, but specifically with just come, right? And if you are listening to this and never heard the term just come, these are just, immigrants new to the country. We're just speaking in this context of, Haitians who was not born here and coming to America. It's a lot of culture shock to realize, because when my cousin came here, she thought we were driving BMWs. No, like these foreign expensive cars. That's not the case. But you mentioned something, Luther, about that you were seeing that there's opportunities and things that you noticed that it wasn't a venture, right? It wasn't venture out to most Haitians. But I'll also say that we didn't just bring it to our awareness because of the lack of exposure. So you identify an issue because of your own personal experience, and you wanted to do something about that as well. And I'm quite curious to think about why there isn't a transition, like a really proper transition period for just comes or new immigrants. It's always just put them in Esau. Right. That's the transition period. I never understood that at all. So
Haitian parents, man, that's how Haitian parents be thinking. They're like, hey, we drop them in Esau, they'll be all right. Yeah. They patted this guy on the back. He gave him some sus squad to go to school with, and that was it. They're like, you'll be okay. That's it.
But I would like to ask you, what do you feel like you identified, because something you socially identified that it was a problem and you wanted to bring it to most Haitians' awareness to kind of bridge that gap in between awareness and opportunities and accessibility that they can have. What do you think that you have learned within yourself within the entire process, from moving from Lake Worth, going off to Palm Beach State, and then transitioning over to Orlando to college? So you did a lot of transitioning, and to know that you want to continue having that growth mindset and to provide and serve for your community. So you wasn't moving in silence. We have a theme here that we don't move in silence like lasagna. Like we actually place it out there for opportunities to come to us, but while we are positioning ourselves for those opportunities as well. So what do you think that you have learned in that process for yourself?
That's a great question. So one thing in particular that I've learned is that us as Haitian, or majority of us, not like let's not say everybody now. There's a scarcity mindset, right? There's a scarcity mindset. When we know something, we tend to hold it on to ourselves, right? And we think that a lot of time, if we share the things that we know, then what we have will diminish, and which is not actually true. And I'm saying this, whether it's the scholarships I mentioned earlier, right? So you may have, and I had that mentality as well. Let me correct myself. I had that mentality as well, and that's what I realized in college, because at that time, I was curious, I was learning, I was looking. I was finding out about scholarships, right? So at that time, I knew about scholarships. So why didn't I share it with my group? Why didn't I share it with the Esau class that I was in, right? So it kind of, made me feel guilty when I get into college, and I'm looking back, and I realized that, hey, I'm not that special, right? So I'm not that special to a point where those opportunities I was given or I've found, the other Haitians could have, benefited from those opportunities as well. So I think, to me, the biggest thing was like the scarcity mindset that I had to switch. And like, hey, just because I get this scholarship, that doesn't mean if I give it to somebody else that, it will take anything away from me. So from that on, so I've just, put in this abundance mindset. Like, whatever I know, whatever I figure out, I'm gonna share it. I'm gonna find a way to share it with other people. That way I don't become successful individually, but we can become successful as a community.
Oh wow, Luther, you killed that. That was a great response. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
think what's really important here is that you did mention that initially when you mentioned the idea, there was a group of people that didn't really gravitate to it. But then Mac comes in, hearing it maybe months, a year later, and draws in. So although you weren't moving in silence the first time,
Mm-hmm.
being in a different environment,
Environment. It's yep,
whole
yep.
different results. So I want to hear from Mac, like, what made you hear this and was like, no, this is a good idea, and we need to, however I can support you, like whatever it is, because clearly you wasn't on the sound waves the first time around, but second time around you were. But season two, you come in and you're a host, but what made you say like, hey, I want to get part of this?
Mac, the
Thank
hype
you,
man.
Lovely, for giving me the opportunity to make Luther feel bad. I always say this because before this thing started, he came to me. I was a hype man. I was like, "This is great." We
He was
just
probably
decided in
looking
the
real
community.
sad too. Like,
No,
he was
I
like
really
sad.
wasn't. I
No, no,
remember this
not you,
conversation.
but him.
Oh,
He was
him.
like, I have an idea. He's looking real sad. Like,
So it's funny because I remember this conversation vividly. Like he came to me, he was like, "Yo, I gotta talk to you." I was like, "Yo, I gotta talk to you too. Have you ever thought about a podcast?" He looked at me weird. He was like, "Wait, what?" That's what I want to talk to you about. I was like, oh, that's great. And then he was like, yeah, I already started thinking about this, and I already have X, Y, and Z, and I already have a co-host. I was like, oh, okay. And we'll see how that works. And so, but fast
Said,
forward,
okay.
to answer your question more specifically, it's a couple of things, Lovely. I have a couple of friends that are Ghanaians, um, and I kind of want to talk about. I knew Luther was going to say scarcity mindset, and he is right. I have a friend of mine that's a Ghanaian, and she tells me about how it doesn't matter where you go in the United States. There's sort of like quote unquote a griot. Shout out to a griot, right? There's a griot that kind of comes in and it gives them the lay of the land. They have this head person that's been in, for example, Broward County. He's the oldest person, an oldest Ghanaian that's been in Broward County, and you got to go to him, and he could tell you, oh yeah, your great uncle came in like in the '80s and stuff like that. They have history that they are comfortable passing down, and for us, it's hard. My mother experienced this as a nurse. She went to school, and like there were other people that did it before her. Nobody want to tell her, study this or study that. Nobody want to tell her this is the book I used. And I
Mm-hmm.
think
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the folds to me that migrated me towards the whole connected me towards us doing this. And the other one is, for to be honest, where Luther and I are both products of like of two, right? So he's the oldest of two, and he has little sister, and I'm the oldest of two, and I have a little sister. And there's an added pressure that is on the oldest to figure it out, especially when you're the product of immigrants, to figure it out and to not be a failure for the next person looking at you, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
have a little sister that is expecting that doesn't know anything yet, and they're younger, they don't know any better, and so you're like, okay, so I have to figure this out. I have to look for scholarships myself. I have to not be a failure, but then I also have somebody that's looking at me, as well. So and then I have my parents that I'm trying to, make proud of me. So it all connected to me. It's like, okay, we've already been doing this on a smaller scale. Let's just do this on a bigger scale. Because I know the other Haitians that come from Haiti that would love to know where certain things are. And they would love to know, okay, do I have to be a nurse? Because that's what everybody is doing. Or can I be something else? Or does my heart really resonate with nursing? Or are there other majors, other career paths that exist? So when he said that to me, it was a no-brainer, that we gotta he understand where I come from as being the oldest guy, being the oldest boy, and then he understands where I come from in terms of like what it is that we really need to pass down, like other countries and other generations, from other of the backgrounds. So that was it for me. That's what drew me into it. And that's why, even though he didn't pick me as a co-host, I was just in the background doing show notes. I was like, yeah, any way that I can help, I'll do show notes, and I'll translate and whatever. But yeah, that's it.
Why are you like this, Lawrence? I just see what you posted.
Hey, it's true. Like just so everybody know, I like to kind of talk in the chat while people are talking.
Talking smack.
Yeah, talking smack. And the way Luther said it about, I'm still hurt by it, because I felt the same thing he felt. It felt like a therapy moment. Like, I hope that you're laughing at these haters, and I hope that they're still poor.
I'm definitely laughing now.
I hope that they remain poor, for you.
What?
You get rich.
I didn't go that far now. I don't go that far.
Hey, I said it for you from the inside, man. And also, Lovely out here in the corner while Mike is talking, it's like, yeah, she ended up being a nurse. I'm just saying, the shade was dropped.
Listen, there was no shade. I said, do I really want to do it?
I didn't even notice the shade until it was mentioned. I was like,
exactly.
That's all Lovely
always
wanted to be in
for
life. Like, hey, Lovely always wanted to be that in life, a nurse.
No, I actually wanted to go to med school. So let's get it correct. Let me correct you guys here. So I did nursing in high school. So by the time I was 18, I was a nurse. And then from there, I did hospice nursing for 5 years. And I realized that medicine, I'm starting a healthcare venture soon anyways. So it's going to end up connecting in a way, but I realized that I want to build the enterprise. I want to be the person that builds an enterprise. So I stopped. I did finish bio, did finish sociology, but I didn't end up going to med school. But you know what's interesting? I was actually the kid that wanted to be a doctor. It wasn't pushed on me. So it was one of those weird things that everybody's like, oh, you're patient parents. I'm like, nah, my mom just really wanted me to be successful and good at school. I genuinely wanted to be a doctor. But when I really started to soul search, I realized I want to build the enterprises, and I had a gifting in building up organizations and doing these different things. So I took a different path. So we got to correct Lawrence talking about.
Thank you. Because he was trying to make me feel bad.
I hope that he
was trying to make me feel bad.
She was working straight out of school.
Yeah,
exactly.
A Haitian man's dream.
Oh wow!
I turned it full circle. Every Haitian guys are like,
You love them some Haitian nurses.
That was no shade at all. I didn't even know that, Lovely.
Nah, it's obviously, it's Lawrence. I won't blame you.
I know, right?
It's not you.
Okay,
the toxicity of Lawrence. We said we're going to behave on this podcast episode. Nobody wants to behave, but
it's just funny.
But everything that you said is funny. The reference that you made to the Ghanaians about how they had a point person, right? They had someone that they can go to that says, hey, here's a lay of the land, here's the history, and here are the pitfalls, right? And it's interesting to me because we'll get into this. What recently happened in Texas, where there was all these migrants of Haitians under the bridge. There's this lady that's now sharing this video that her husband had told her, like, some Haitian people here really started to take people into their homes. Like, even if they don't know them, like, we're going to take you into the home, because if they could literally sign somebody from immigration, that they could be able to have a space. And she got on her. She said, well, my husband said that you can't do it because like, oh, you don't know how. It's when saying that, it wasn't in a good positive way, it was in a negative connotation. And essentially she was saying that she was hearing so much horror stories of people bringing people in and it turning out horrible. And so now that message is amplified. Like, hey, if you were one of those people that took these people in, share your horror stories about the worst thing that happened. So now there's going to always be like, well, let me not help Haitians because back when I sin. Let me not. So this is a narrative that's being pushed. Now, let's say there was 100 families that took people in. The 6 stories that are horrible are going to be the ones that we hear about. Like, there was this one lady saying that, one of the people raped her child. Like, it's really, like, when I talk about like really like dark, it's dark. So these are the stories that are now being amplified. So if there's a case again, and let's say a year or two where it's an opportunity to help your fellow Haitian, what are you going to remember? You don't know Haitians. So then we start to have this connotation that it's not a surprise that if you had an opportunity, you're not sharing it, because underlyingly there is this culture of you don't know Haitians, and doing anything good for a Haitian may come back and bite you in the butt. So I want to ask you guys, everybody on this, what do you guys think about the narrative of how we see ourselves as Haitian people? Because when we see Haitian, are we seeing is in a positive light? Or are we seeing like from exactly what she said? And I've actually heard that before, like, you don't know Haitians. Like, so what happened that we're not, our thing says l'union fait la force. And it's all talking about unity to today, and probably even yesterday, even when we were growing up, that it was a negative connotation to even be in relationship with Haitians, because it's like, if you're doing a business with Haitians, you know what's about to happen. You get in a relationship with the Haitian, you know what's about to happen. And when they're saying that, it's not a good what's about to happen. So how do you guys feel about that narrative that's being, perpetuated in our society?
I
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Marc, Jean, go ahead.
No, I lovely. I agree with you 100%. I think the problem is deeply rooted into how we grew up, and the fact that um let me get mine first, and then I'll tell you if I want to, if it doesn't bring you to my level, how to get yours and how to eat. And I think, I don't know why, but even Haitians that come here first, they have that mentality. I went to Chicago one time, and I saw this guy who picked me up from the airport. He's Haitian, and he was telling me, "Oh, we're not like the same as the Haitians from this side of Chicago, because we've been here since the '40s." And in my mind, I'm like, "Why is there a difference? Why is there a difference? Like, yes, your parents came in the 1940s and settled in Chicago, and these people came in the '60s, but why are you trying to create that divide?" So I agree with you. I've seen it. I've experienced it. Where, with, at least with my parents, and how they're told certain things. It's like, like, I think systemically Haitians want to feel better than, because we've come from so far. But when you mentioned everything you just mentioned, there's no specific, there's no, oh, these are the OCAP Haitians. No, anybody that looks at us externally, they see Haitians. So yes, you're thinking that you're better than, or you've made it out, or this person hasn't, or this person still relies on you, or this person still looks at you as a role model. But guess what? The rest of the world, the narrative that they're hearing is Haitians, and what America is portraying is Haitians. What Europe is looking at is Haitians. Like, I can't tell you the countless of times where I've been stopped and I'm talking to somebody who's strictly American or European, and they're like, "Where you from?" And I say I'm Haitian. They're like, "Oh." They're not asking me what part of Haiti I'm from or
That
what's my
happened to us
background.
at
Exactly.
FinCon.
They hit you with
So
the, oh, you've been affected.
exactly.
Yeah,
How are you
Okay.
feeling? How are you dealing with it?
man.
Like,
And so it's like they don't even know my
oh,
background. And
how's your family?
Can we
exactly.
donate?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like,
Literally.
oh, it's so bad out there, blah blah blah. It's like, I feel so bad for you guys. It's like,
Right. Right. And so what I want us to realize is that we're grouped together no matter what. So let's uplift, and that's what I mentioned earlier about changing our own narrative in the right way. Let's make sure that the 94% is what we're the voice that we're hearing in the analogy that you gave, and not just the 6 people that had bad stories. Yeah, bad stories happen, but bad stories happen in every demographic. So let's just make sure that I was actually on Instagram, and this guy was literally doing that. He went to Texas with money out of his own pocket. He was like getting hotels for certain individuals, and he was housing them. But he was looking at critical cases. He was looking at, all right, single mothers or whatever, whatever. And then the comments were so negative. Why are you doing this? Why are you spending money for these people? You don't even know these people. And he's like, yeah, I don't, but I'm in a position where I was fortunate enough to get here, and I'm here, and I told myself I'm going to look out for my fellow Haitians. And I think that needs to be the general narrative.
I'm here. Oh man, that's actually very powerful. Is my wife like opening boxes in the background? Ultimately, what I'm gonna say about that is a recent experience that I've had at the embassy of Haiti. I'm just gonna call it out. I'm not afraid to call out people. We went out there for a great event overall. But the moment we got there, I think it was a feeling that my wife gotten, because at the beginning you have to kind of, I guess, sign in. And the way she kind of positioned herself, she never looked at my wife, right? She looked down on the piece of paper, it's like, and then she went right into French. So, I forget exactly what she said. She went basically, and my wife was like, oh, why did she do all that? Or she was checking my wife calls it checking her Haitianness, because my wife is more Haitian American. She doesn't have a strong grasp on speaking French or Creole, but ultimately she felt a certain way about it. And I've noticed that about our people. We like to classify ourselves differently in order to try to make ourselves feel better than the last person. And that goes part of what Luther was saying about holding on to information. The reason why we hold on to it, because that's that class thing again. Like we have to be on top of the next person. And ultimately, and I told my wife straight up, she wasn't checking your Haitianness, she was checking your class level. That's all she was doing, because of the way she opened with the French, because I knew what she was doing. I've been aware of it. I grew up in Haiti. I was raised to like 9 years old. I seen the dialogue, the way it's framed, and the way she asked the question without ever even looking at you in your eyes, like straight up, like you ain't nothing, whatever. Instead of being inviting, warm, and receiving of people, she literally wanted to classify you as important or unimportant. The important being that you speak French, you're one of us. The luxury, or the unimportant being that you speak nothing but Creole and you're just part of the riffraff. And I always felt that around, different experiences that I've had with Haitians as well. So it's not a good thing. And that's why that's why I ended up with Wanda, who formed L'Union Suite, which had its 11th, this month is actually the 11th anniversary year of L'Union Suite and the Haitian American. We formed up together because nobody else was trying to do it. Even then, when we reached out to people, radio show hosts, or even publishing, we literally wanted to create, just like you're creating now with the podcast, just an entire web of where Haitian Americans just to talk about all our issues everywhere. Either it be in a radio station, either be on a publication, either be online. We wanted to create all of that. That's why you find the Union Street and you find Haitian American on Facebook, because we just merged the ideas together, because we brought them up at the same time. But it was just better that she ran it. It was literally just better. And it's because of our egos, we're not able to just let go and allow, I'm very perfectly happy to play player 2, player 3, or player 4 to somebody's player 1. And that's what we're not doing in the Haitian community or in the Black community overall. I'm not too sure about other communities personally, and not to kind of classify one better than the other. But as far as how I think, I don't mind playing another person. I don't have to be number one. And I think that's what's dragging down, a lot of families, a lot of communities, because everybody's trying to be the one person, whereas not that important. Because somebody else, hey, if Luther comes out to be the best podcaster ever, I'm like, I'm gonna hype this guy up to the nth degree. I'm gonna look at if Mac will be the best epidemiologist ever in existence. I'm like, yo, hype him up to the nth degree, and that's what I'm gonna do. Period. It's not going to be something of an ego for me. It's really going to be a moment in which I step back in order for somebody else to be right in front. I do not mind being part of the audience clapping. I really don't mind. It's better than standing in front giving the speech any damn way, and you get to eat your food while they're doing that. Get some good sushi. I'm like, look at Mike out here giving this speech. Good man. And I'd rather be that guy too, that Mike, he looks like, he's like, Lawrence looked out for me. He points and everybody's like, I do this. Oh shoot. Yes. And now, I go back to do our carry on. No, carry on. That's my style, but that's why I learned.
I agree with you 100%. I think going back to the same scarcity mindset, I think it originates from that. It's the need to be number one. They need to be the only one. They need to be the sole one, that's doing it. Where, like I mentioned earlier, you could be successful individually. That's nice. But as a community, how are we looking? That's.
And that was our mindset too, even when we were thinking about going to FinCon this past year. We were literally like, all right, bro, let's go learn, let's go absorb, let's go see what we can bring back to our community. I know it's a bunch of Americans and everybody else, but we're gonna go there and we're gonna shake hands with everybody. We literally got into a room where like, should we split? Where we're gonna start? And it wasn't just about networking. Yeah, it's networking for COEM, but it's also like, okay, so what does our people not know yet that we can bring back that they can benefit from?
Hey, Mark, can you explain to our listeners who may not be familiar with FinCon? What is FinCon? Where is it? What's the purpose of it?
Man, Luther would probably be the best guy, but I'll start with what I know. FinCon stands for, a financial conference that happens every year. It happens in different cities. It is literally promoting personal finance, with people, with young millennials, and it also highlights the different platforms and mediums that you're using to do that. So podcasting is one of them. people that has YouTube, TikTok, whatever you have, and you're promoting that. They welcome you into that room, and you kind of get to share ideas and learn from each other, and how to get people to be more financially free and teach them about financial literacy. Luther, how did I do?
You did very well. You did very well, man. But yeah, just to add, yeah, it is like Mike said, it's a personal finance conference, and it's very inclusive. That's one thing I noticed over there. We met a lot of, people, black people who are in the personal finance space. The he's in her money. We during the lunch, Anthony O'Neill, you name it. We met all those people there, and it was a a great experience. And one thing, as Mike was speaking, it just come to mind. I think one thing we had to do as well is kind of present Haiti on a different light, because all the questions that we're asking, because at that time I think there was a situation going on and at the border, and that was big news. That was everywhere. So we had a lot of questions about those, and it was very uncomfortable, honestly, because then we have to flip the conversation on what we're doing that is good, right? It's not only because every country have their good and their bad, right? And for some reason, whenever media is talking about Haiti, it's always from a negative standpoint, right? It's never positive. It's never selling our culture. And I feel like as this podcast, as this platform, we have now the opportunity to sell Haiti and Haitians in a different light. So we took that chance, and we took that opportunity to say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is the type of people we have on the podcast. This is Haitians. This is who we are, right? So this what you see on the TV. It's not only what's going on. So we took the opportunity to definitely sell our country and sell our people.
Who was your favorite person that you met at FinCon? Be honest.
Favorite person. Actually, it's most likely definitely Anthony O'Neill. He's a cool dude. He's a cool dude. He's very outgoing. He's just I didn't think of him like I remember like the first day Mike and him Mike and I we saw him, and then Mike was like, hey, I think that's Anthony O'Neill. I was like, oh shoot, that's Anthony O'Neill. And then we passed by. We said, all right, we'll meet him next time. So the second day, like we ran across him, like right in front of him, and we introduced ourselves. Man, he's a pretty cool guy. A pretty cool guy, down to earth.
What about you, Mark? Who was your favorite person that you had a chance to meet?
For me, Anthony O'Neill was cool. But for me, I would say Jaspreet Singh. Um, and he's the owner of Minority Mindset. And what I like about Jaspreet is he's as enthusiastic meeting you as you are meeting him. Like the eye contact, the handshake, and he, ask multiple questions about you. And I think because he comes from a background that has those negative connotations and those
Mm-hmm.
negative backgrounds. And I like the double entendre of even the name Minority Mindset. And so in talking to him, he was cool. He was really cool. It's like, what do you guys do? This is great. How can I help? And he was good. I like it.
The one thing I love about FinCon, but mostly a lot of the summits or conferences, because with FinCon specifically, which we mentioned, the financial summits of all the personal finance influencers, gurus per se. I don't know what they call them these days, but they're all in one place. So you get to actually be around. Accessibility is right in your face. You get to talk to
Yep.
them, have personal conversations. And I did see, I follow your stories where your guy was actually doing live podcasting with
Mm-hmm.
some of the guests that were there. What do you feel as though? Because was it like a 2 day thing, 3 day thing, a weekend,
It was 3 days.
3 days?
3 days.
What do you feel like individually or collectively as Krim podcast, Krim the brand, did you take out of it of the FinCon?
Um. What I take out of it is we have to look at it. We have to look at the podcast more as a business than just as a hobby. Yes, we are doing it, to help out the community, but we can set it up in a way where it's beneficial for everybody, right? Because it's a lot of work. I'm pretty sure you guys know that podcasting is a lot of work. It's not. It's like a full time job. Whether it's pre-production, production, post-production, social media. There's a lot of work that goes into it. So what I learned is that we need to find a way to set it up as a business and find ways to build an audience and connect well and build a tribe in a sense. Connect well with our audience and that way they can interact with us a little bit better and we can grow together as a community.
Yeah, for me, definitely that you have to look at it more as a business, no matter how involved and passionate you about the topic. You're losing if you're not trying to monetize every opportunity for sure. The other thing is to me, like we got into a room with certain people, and all they were asking is, "Who are you? What do you do? And how can we help?" Literally, we got into a room full of Black people that were, there and there. So I use that to say, for me, the other thing is, it's a marathon. It's not a race, right? Because we sat in there. I know when we first got there, we were like, all right, so we're not gonna tell people that we only had 50 episodes. We just gonna be like, oh yeah, KORE'M podcast. And so they were sitting there, and when they would ask directly, like, what's your download? What's this? What's that? And then we tell them, and their response was like, oh, okay, all right, good job, congratulations. And I'm like, oh shoot, like, okay, so maybe we're doing something. And then the next thing is like, okay, so X, Y, and Z, if you do this, you can get this, you can get this, you can. And I'm like, man, this is pretty cool. Like, it's. And then they're like, oh yeah, I remember my first time, this how many listeners, or I had to revamp, or I had to take a break. This guy talked about mental break, being a host. And we're like, mental break, because Luther and I, we be pushing
What's his
ourselves
name?
like, oh, we gotta kill ourselves, we gotta do this, we gotta do that. And this guy's like, yeah, I took a 6 months mental break. I was like, really? We could do that?
Break? We don't do breaks. We're Haitian, man. We gotta do extra work, man. What's
He was
up?
like,
Why do I feel like I know who that was?
Yes, it's the what's his name?
I don't know if we're gonna drop names.
We're
but
not gonna drop names.
yeah,
I think
I
we
know
know. I
exactly
think
who
we
you're
know
talking
who that
about.
is.
Exactly
We
talking about.
know who that is.
We know.
We know.
But still, I
got it.
learned from that, believe it or not, because I know
Yeah.
how I work. I'm always like, all right, what's the next thing? What I gotta do? I gotta keep moving. Or, Luther, what we doing? Like, oh, should we get the next 5 people lined up? And he was like, nah. When you take mental breaks, you come out more fresh and you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, for us, it had to be like, we're not that far off. We don't have to minimize. Like we interviewed somebody that said we have to stop saying T. We don't have to
Yes.
think like it's
Yeah.
a T podcast. So we only been there for 3 years now. So he's like, you have to change your mindset that it's good enough, and it's a marathon, not a race.
Yeah, I actually wanted to. I guess the first time I actually heard about KORE'M was through this Haitian Millennial Money Conference or something. Was it?
Yeah.
That's the exact word.
Yes,
Because that's
yes.
where I learned about it, and I think that's, to me, that entire segment was amazing because I've never heard just Haitians talk about finances for that long in this many iterations. Like the idea of like some people are investing, some people are doing the real estate stuff, some people are doing, I guess, their own personal finance, some people are doing small business, some doing international business. So it's just ideally, it's just something that I've never really seen in the Haitian community, how to scale up. And I think that's something that Lovely is trying to help the Haitian community with, the idea of scaling upwards and to really shift from just being the T stuff, like the small business, to being the business. Instead of having the small mindset or the small reach, or the idea of just like, I'm just going to do this, a little that, instead of that, just pushing ourselves. And I think that's very important to say. And it's something that I read recently in the Haitian Times, in an article by Gary Pierre. It was like one of the most notable New York, I guess, journalists at the time. He ended up creating the HaitianTimes.com. He worked for New York Times at one point. And he literally said that in this recent article, Karl Marx said that the power to define is the power to control. We should define who we are and then control our destinies. Waiting for somebody else, generally insert XXX here, to do it, it's not going to work. And I think that's really the gist of KORE'M. That's really the gist of what you guys have been doing this entire time. Not allowing other people to define the space for you and just really just doing something about it. And I think that's something Haitians all over the world, we just need to do. Instead of waiting for somebody, this person, Biden's going to do it for me. Nobody's going to do it for you. You got to do it for yourself. And I think that's why it's so important to have this conversation. Oh, I dropped the mic. Everybody just got quiet. Everybody was just nodding their heads. Lovely got nothing to say. I said,
well, there you have it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Financial Griot. I really hope you guys enjoyed that first part of the episode with the KORE'M podcast crew. And make sure you subscribe and share it with a friend of a friend with another friend who knows a friend. Leave those 5 stars. We really appreciate it. But in the meantime, stay tuned. TFG, we out.